So today we're chatting here with Stuart of Marketek Consulting. Hi, Stuart. Nice to see you as
Thank you,
always.
John.
Can you tell us a 20-second who you are, what you do, and just
I
take it away?
assist people with online marketing using organic search engine optimization, using online ads through Google, and using web analytics, mostly Google Analytics to date.
Okay, so if I am a super busy business owner, what would you say are like the top three things I should be asking of analytics?
Top three. I think the first thing is what are the trends for traffic? A second is where are people going on the website? A third is how are people getting to the website in the first place? But it comes down, the bottom line on analytics is it's a tool that's a starting point. It is not, you can never look at an analytics report and say, oh, this is the answer. It's just a starting point. And you have to use your intuition. You have to get context from looking at trends over time, from looking at a lot of data in the same time period. Then you can start drawing some conclusions. So again, one of the really interesting things for anyone looking at the analytics is what's the serendipity? There's kind of the structure of we have this level, this level, this level, and we want to go through everything. But then there's also the joy, literally, of looking at something and saying, wow, what is going on here? What are the opportunities for this? In the case of one client, he gets a lot of traffic coming in from New York because he is from New York. And so even though he's here in the Seattle area. And so there can be some really interesting things where people say, you know, maybe we need to have a New York shipping special or do something that will turn those visitors into buyers.
Yeah, and so so what we're embarking on here is basically regular ways of improving the effectiveness of your website. And
Wonderful.
so we've kind of are laying out this as the first topic. How do you know you're successful if you don't have numbers to back it up, if you don't have some idea of what's working and what's not? You're bringing up here that not only can it tell you how effective your experiments are and your changes are, but it's also a place to go to get ideas and see what else you might add to your offerings that people really want. Use it to gauge that that effectiveness or gauge the desire for it.
Engage those opportunities that you might not have thought of, but that are just waiting for people to capitalize on.
How is that getting collected? Do you know where that information is coming from and what sources, and do they respect our privacy?
Absolutely. In Google, a lot of it comes from people who are signed up as a email, or I should say as a Gmail user, or they have a Google account. They've given their birth date, their gender, their geography. And so it's fairly easy for Google to put that into their AdWords reports. And that's been a voluntary or almost voluntary decision in that, you know, someone doesn't have to use Gmail if they don't want to. They don't have to be signed into Google when they go to when they do a search in Google. So it's semi-voluntary, somewhat voluntary. Another source of the demographic information is where people have visited, and that is a lot trickier. There are stories of Google being asked to remove information about searches that people have done, of people going to controversial websites related to healthcare services, for instance, and they did not want to be identified. They did not want to be tracked. And suddenly they're seeing ads that relate to it.
So based on that, I'm curious if you have some good examples where demographic data is helpful for answering these effectiveness questions.
Well, the first item I like to look at is the geography. And in some cases, it can be exasperating because Google will serve ads based on location or expressed interest in location. And so I will see visitors coming in from India when we're not advertising in India. It's because of how the visitor expressed an interest in a US product or service. But that visitor often is interested because they want to sell my client something, not because they want to buy something. So geography is the starting point. In particular, one idea I had a few years ago that essentially got canceled by COVID was it was for a retirement home in Dallas. And I said, your audience in part is people who are in Dallas, but in part it's people who are in other cities trying to find a location in Dallas for their loved ones to retire to. And so we should be looking at, or it may be that the child is in some other city, Los Angeles, Oklahoma City, New York, they're doing the search for their parent who's in Dallas, trying to figure out what would be some good places to go. And so I said, this should play a definite role in how you structure your ads. As I mentioned, that got canceled by COVID, and they were at the point where they did not want anyone moving into their facility. They were not at capacity, but they said, we cannot bring anyone in, so sorry, this project is canceled. But that's an example of an influencer, back to what we were talking about with the nonprofits, where the influencers are people who are helping others make a decision. People will say, oh, our market is Dallas. Yes, your market is Dallas, but your influencers may not be in Dallas. So how do you structure an ad campaign that way? Well, you could say, for the Dallas market, using geo-targeting, we're going to target at people who are within 20 miles of Dallas-Fort Worth Airport. And they could be typing in retirement home, senior living, assisted living, phrases like that. Then for the rest of the country, we're going to search for people who are, or we want to be in front of people who are looking for Dallas senior living, Dallas assisted living, phrases like that. Fort Worth, Plano. And there are a lot of suburbs, and some people may be really specific about it's got to be in Plano. It can't be in Fort Worth. It's got to be in Plano. So that's where you look at the demographic data on the website, and you say, okay, what can we tell about the geography, and also what can we tell about the people who are searching? Can we tell that these people who are searching are 30, 40, 50s, or are they 70s, 80s? When they're from LA and they're looking for Dallas senior living, there may be some really useful insights. And maybe if it's the 30, 40, 50s who are searching from LA, the website content then needs to be about, this is how to help your loved one. If it's people who are in the 70s, 80s, maybe the content needs to be, you'll love it living in Dallas, and we will help you with the move. This is how we help. So very different demographic can set up a need for very different messages on that landing page, even though the search phrase is the same. And then another question to ask is, what metrics do you want to look at? Do you care about traffic coming in from social media and how long people are staying on your site? Do you care about which websites are steering traffic to you? I think that's really important, but in some cases, people will say, well, it doesn't really matter. We are a local business. We're focused on a 5 square mile area. And I don't care if I get traffic from New York or Los Angeles when we're in Portland. That's nice. Doesn't matter. We're not going to do anything with it. So we don't need that in an analytics product. We don't need anyone to look at it. So there's, a real issue of what information do you need? What information do you want? What information can you act on?
Okay. So we do really focus on self-hosting and open source solutions. So I do want to be clear that when we're talking about Matomo, it's fully enterprise capable and used in a lot of big shops. And we use it for free, like our core products are all free. It doesn't mean it's free of cost. There's a cost running the server and all that. And we do provide that with part of our maintenance plans. We provide Matomo. And I am just seeing that they do have a plugin for importing all the data from Google Analytics. So that might be a good thing for us to offer if you want to save your historical data from Google Analytics, I think we might have a good path there. So you've been using Matomo a bit and comparing and everything. Anything jump out at you as to the differences and your thoughts on it right now? Or
Well, there are some very specific items I've been trying to replicate that I do in the current version of Analytics, Google Universal, and I have not been able to replicate it yet in Matomo. And that's been kind of frustrating. I don't want to diss Matomo. I want to keep exploring it, but I just have certain ways that I will segment the data in Universal in order to answer some questions, especially related to traffic coming in from ads, where it's coming from, what landing page you landed on, things like that. So I think what really strikes me at the high level about Matomo is they do have a lot of functionality, and that is available as a paid add-on, and that looks promising for people. I think that again, people may not need or even be able to act on some of that information now, but it's really good to know that 2 years from now, when you're redoing your website, you can buy that analytics add-on and look at things and maybe get some insights that you didn't need at this time. So I think that's a strong positive to Matomo. And then another thing that also strikes me about the product is they have a big focus on the privacy, from what I can tell, and on a European, what I call Eurocentric foundation, which I think is really a strong positive, because Europe has been significantly ahead of the US. And so if you're at a
in terms of
European
privacy,
standard for the privacy, and so if you're at a European standard now, that's a really good thing, in my opinion. Anything the US does is going to be at a lower level than what Europe is doing now. So I think that you're covered, and especially if if you're selling globally or have partners who are global, or at some point want to have partners that are global, you're not going to have problems the way that you might with some other products.
Yeah, well, this is the advantage of open source. The people that created Matomo are actually in New Zealand.
Oh, I did not
So
know that.
yeah, but it's an open source project, so they get contributions from all over the world, and open source is particularly popular in Europe. So there's a lot of European contributors that are making sure everything is done to the standards they need. So that's I wholeheartedly agree. That's one of the key reasons, or key strengths of Matomo and open source solutions in general. You know, they do have paid offerings where you can go to them directly. But you can also go to a provider like us, and we can host it for you. We
Yeah.
do we do manage a dedicated install for one client, and then we have our big installation that we have most of our clients tracked on, including some that Stuart's been using. There's a lot that's in Matomo. That's some of the things like the page flows, that's built in. We use that quite a lot. There is an overlay function as well that we've had trouble working with some of the browser security updates. I've been having the same troubles with Google Analytics. So when I think about some of the reasons that you might not choose Matomo, or I mean, you can run them both side by side, and we do run both Google Analytics and Matomo side by side on a bunch of sites.
Yep.
So I would say one of the key things is paid search, because when you're doing, as I understand it, when you're doing paid search in Google, that unlocks a bunch of direct stuff that Google Analytics can then report on that you can't access outside their platform.
The first thing about Google Ads is that it draws in data from Google Analytics, and that data can be very helpful. Pages per session, bounce rate, which obviously is not going to be a part of Google Analytics 4, but still up till now, it's been helpful to have that. And then then similarly, the data from Google Ads can be imported into, Google Analytics and give some insights. I think one thing about the variety of products I'm looking at is that some of them do claim to have really good integration with conversion tracking and with other Google Ads data, using the Google Ads APIs for drawing the data out, for exporting the data. And so that is definitely something to look at. And it comes back to one of the earlier points, which is people have to ask, what data do they need? What data do they want? And for some people, the nth degree of detail about the Google Ads activity may not be a very big deal. For other people, it may be mission critical to know what's going on there. So that's the starting point, is looking at what people want out of their data system, and then looking at which tools, multiple, are going to give that. Well, that's what a perfect example of serendipity, of people, you brainstorm and discuss, and then you get some insights to something new to look at. So I think that's a great note for wrapping up our conversation here. The role is serendipity.
Sounds good. So if people want to reach you for some consulting or help,
Certainly, I'm glad to
that?
assist. Marketek is spelled Marketek consulting, consulting.com, marketek-consulting.com. And I'm Stuart, spelled Stuart, Jenner, spelled Jenner.
And sending you an email or something off
Sure.
of the form off your website was the best
Yep.
way? Or?
Yep, Stuart J at marketek-consulting.com is a good one to use.
Great. Well, super. Well, thanks for spending some time with us. Always great to catch up with you, and
thank you.
And have a great long weekend.
Thank you.